Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman Nick Broeker. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers have added to their offensive line group once again, and this time they add a veteran to the roster. It's a one-year deal worth $1.03 million, and his name is Nick Broeker. But first, before I get more into him and his introduction to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also, like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason had a lot of turnover thus far on offensive line, with players leaving in free agency to sign with different teams, and the Pittsburgh Steelers bringing in some guys, whether it's undrafted, veterans, or whatever. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had new offensive linemen added to this roster, and it doesn't stop yet, because now the Pittsburgh Steelers add a player in offensive lineman Nick Broeker. And when looking at what he may bring to this roster and what he has been in his past, let's start off with he was waived by the Houston Texans on May 9th, which obviously opened up a possibility of him signing with the Steelers. And ultimately, he did. If he was never waived, he wouldn't be in a Pittsburgh uniform this upcoming season. Anyway, Nick Broeker was a 7th round pick out of Buffalo in 2023. He's appeared in 12 games and with the Texans across the 2023 to 2024 seasons. Last season, however, he played in 9 games, but most of his time was spent on special teams. Broeker, he logged 40 snaps on special teams compared to just 6 on offense. To date, he's logged only 9 regular season offensive snaps. So, he doesn't really have much experience actually on the offense line at the main NFL level. However, let's look at him in college because he came out of Ole Miss. Broeker weighed in at 6'4", 305 pounds with 32.5-inch arms. At the NFL Combine, he ran a 5.27 second 40-yard dash time with a 7.75 3-cone. In the scouting report that many people have done on Nick Broeker when looking back at it, he was praised for his play strength and run blocking ability, combined with good bloodlines and experience against SEC competition. However, some of the negative things that were said about him was that they noted that he had a lack of foot speed and would likely transition him from college offensive tackle to probably an interior guard at the next level. So, Nick Broeker, when looking at his film myself, you see that he's a strong run blocker who would probably thrive best in kind of a man-to-man blocking scheme or a duo scheme that relies on less zone blocks, so he doesn't really have to get out into space much. When looking at his film, he's a finisher who kind of plays with the extra edge in him and a mean streak overall, and he plays to the whistle, and he doesn't stop before it. His technique is good, but however, he'll need to consistently kind of fire his hands more inside. He doesn't project to be an all-star, but a solid player who can start or be a backup in a right scheme, someone that plays to his strengths. And when I say that, I'm not saying with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm talking just in general. With the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, he would be a backup because there's many players at his position already, whether that is backups that are already on the team that are ahead of him, and there's starters also on the team that are ahead of him. So he's gonna have a hard time trying to find his way even onto this roster on a reserve role. But I'm talking just in general of what he can do or what he could be. So Broeker, he was a left guard and tackle in college. Broeker played left guard and right tackle during his 2 NFL seasons. In last year's preseason, he picked up nearly 200 snaps at right tackle. So, this signing of Broeker adds depth to the Pittsburgh Steelers roster and offense line group. So, when recapping the Pittsburgh Steelers offense line group, because I like doing this when the Steelers add a new player to give you a perspective of can they actually make this roster. And when looking at Nick Broeker, he's a player who I believe is going to have a hard time making it. However, he does have an extra edge to make this roster because the Pittsburgh Steelers actually picked him up after he was waived by a different team, and the Steelers did so by waiving one of their own players in Latavius Smith. So they waived a player that was on the roster to pick up Nick Broeker. So they liked him more than Latavius, and obviously that gives him an extra edge to make this roster. But he's going to have a hard time because the Steelers are really set at the starter, and he's going to have to fight for a backup role. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed players this offseason before Nick Broeker, and they've been on this team longer, and they've actually had a role in the NFL playing with the Steelers in specific games, whether that's taking over for injury, so the Pittsburgh Steelers actually know how they play. With Nick Broeker barely having any snaps at the next level, he's a player that's going to have to earn a spot through special teams. Because if you get on Danny Smith's good side, and he has shown and proved that he can play special teams with the Texans, then he can make this roster. Because he's a player that needs to be trusted first there to be trusted as a backup role for the Steelers' actual offense. So that's how he has to make the team. The Steelers are set based on offensive line. Yeah, he's going to have to fight his way with all those other reserves for a roster spot. But more than likely, he'll end up being at least on the practice squad. So that's his role that I see him as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers have waived a player, and that player is Latavius Smith. And they did that so they can sign Nick Broeker. So let me just go through the Latavius Smith waive real quick before I end this video. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they waived the offensive line, clearing a roster spot, and Pittsburgh Steelers claimed Smith March 24th after he was waived by the New England Patriots. He was just 26 years old and appeared in 18 NFL games with 3 starts. He was a 6th-round pick from the Arizona Cardinals, and he actually had more game experience at the NFL level than Nick Broeker. So that's an interesting move that the Steelers decided to go Nick Broeker's way instead of Latavius Smith. Last season, Smith appeared in 8 games with 1 start for the Patriots, and he actually logged more offensive snaps than Nick Broeker, and he actually logged a decent amount of special teams snaps as well. So it's going to be sad to see him go. He was never really given a chance to make this 53-man roster, but it is what it is. At least he has time to go out and find a new team. Training camp OTAs haven't even started yet for most teams, so Latavius Smith, at least he was waived before, so he still has a fighting chance to make another team's roster. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they make a move on offense line. They obviously decided to go a different direction, and Latavius Smith was in the way, and Nick Broeker was being waived and signed with the Steelers. So Latavius Smith is now gone. Nick Broeker is added to this roster. So they basically just swap out offensive line depth to this team. It's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers add anyone else to this roster and there's any other signings coming up. The Pittsburgh Steelers still have 1 open roster spot. Is that going to be filled by Aaron Rodgers, or is that going to be filled by a different player? I'll let you guys know down the road when something happens. But anyway, that's the end of this video. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the addition of Nick Broeker to this roster. Do you like this addition? Would you have just kept Latavius Smith on the roster? Me personally, it is what it is. I don't really have too much to say about them swapping an offense line. It's what they like best. And it's just going to be a practice squad or reserve role anyway. They could probably barely ever see the field. And it only be because of injuries if that happens. This is not like a swing tackle type of role where they may be an extra offense lineman. No, this would just be strictly a reserve role. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this edition. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything surrounding this team. I've covered this offseason. Every new addition, every cut on this roster has been covered. So if you want to check out all the new guys that have been added to this team, their introduction is on the channel. Go ahead and watch it. Just like this one for Nick Broeker. So I'll continue covering everything as we move into OTA shortly, and then training camp and everything like that. And then the regular season. So stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn notifications for everything rumors as well. And until the next video, that's it for me. I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.